Hello, we are here live at RootsTech 2017. I'm Anita Henderson, the creator of the Genealogist Writing Room, and I'm so excited to be here for a quick snippet with Kenyatta Berry. She is the co-host of the Genealogy Roadshow. I'm so used to seeing Writing Room. Welcome.
Thank you.
So excited to be here to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here as well.
And we're excited about what you all do on Genealogy Roadshow, which is really essentially tell stories,
Absolutely.
right? You all are
Absolutely.
storytellers,
Yes.
and you're telling it in video format. Obviously, you're utilizing documentation, which we love. But in the genealogist writing room, we really focus on writing those stories. We exist to help African American genealogists and family historians write and share the stories of their ancestors and their journey to find them.
Right.
So I know you've done some writing
I
about your
have.
ancestors in upstate New York. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the interesting thing is I've been doing genealogy for over 20 years. And I didn't start with my family. I actually started with an ex-boyfriend's family, which is
Ah.
unusual. But in the past year.
Is that why he's an ex? Did you
Yeah.
find something in it?
Well, we're going to
We
get to
won't
that
go
now.
there,
That's
okay.
another show. That's another show. But in the past year and a half, I've decided or I've found out that people are actually interested in learning more about my family and my family's story. So I decided to tell the story of my family in upstate New York. They were slaves in Virginia, and then they migrated from Virginia to upstate. And that was after the Civil War.
Hmm,
And so they live in a very, very small area called Caledonia near
hmm,
Livingston County.
okay.
And in November, the church they've been attending for the past, since it was founded in 1886, turned 125 years old. Excuse me, before 1880 or after 1886, but it turned 125 years old. And my family were founding members, and I got
Hmm.
to attend that. So I'm writing an article for the New York GMB about that.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So
I'm
tell
super
us what your
excited.
writing process is like. I think a lot of writers,
Hmm.
particularly African American researchers, get a little, hesitant to write. We are not as confident in our writing ability. I think most people, period.
Right.
But tell us about your process to actually write that story.
So it was very interesting. I stepped back and I'd done the research. So I'd written before, kind of just internal for my family.
Hmm.
So I took that and I said, what would make this compelling? I'm telling my family story, but how can it relate to your family story and your
Right.
research, right? Using some of the things we use on Genealogy Roadshow, I decided that this would be a great opportunity for me to kind of step back, look at the photos I collected, look at the documents I collected, look at the oral history, bring that all together to say what makes this unique. And what makes this story unique is the migration from one small county in
Mm,
Culpeper to upstate New York.
love
And
that.
so that was sort of my process that started me down the
And
road
I
there.
love migration stories.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in why people move from one place to the next. And you could say, oh, well, they move for opportunity. Yeah, but what
Right.
opportunity? Sometimes people were leaving something.
They are. They are.
Okay, so they're leaving something in hopes of some opportunity elsewhere.
And that's what my family did. So after the Civil War, this gentleman who's part of the Union Army in upstate saw all of these former slaves in Culpeper County and said, we really need you guys to come and work for us in upstate. We'll pay your way
Mm,
to get there. So they took all of these former slaves to upstate. They worked to pay off their sort of transportation there and then sent for their families. Well, those families created the African American community that's there today. I joke that I'm related to every African American in that town, which I am kind of, through marriage. But they also started, and as I said, we're founding members of a church that's the second oldest African American church in Western New York.
wow, amazing.
So that was a move for opportunity, and busloads of folks every year go from Culpeper County, Virginia, to upstate New York.
Amazing, amazing. So that's a wonderful opportunity if you're listening to take the documentation, all of that research, turn it into a story. And as Kenyatta said, make it engaging, make it compelling. I think a lot of times African American researchers, we think that no one cares about our story. Who else would care, right? And
Right.
you have to value it enough to know that someone else will find it interesting.
Absolutely. And as I started out saying, I just really started lecturing, kind of talking about my family in the past 18 months, because I never thought my family was that interesting.
Hmm.
That ex-boyfriend's family was prominent in, Atlanta and Augusta and other parts of the South. So I thought, well, they were doctors and lawyers. My family are just farmers. No one cares about them.
They're just regular people.
Just regular people. But I found that they had a truly compelling story because that migration story, is one, but there's other parts of it. You know, I realized in researching, looking at newspapers, that Mordecai Johnson, who's the first African American president of Howard University, actually
Mm,
studied in Rochester.
wow.
And in studying in Rochester, my third great aunt had him over for dinner. I never would have found that out unless I started looking at these newspapers and telling that story. So our stories are important.
Mhm.
Our stories, African American stories, are part of American history. And they're well documented in newspapers. I found that in the New York Age, was an African American newspaper. They reported events for African Americans throughout the state of New York.
Oh,
And just piecing together
yeah,
that story, right? Because it's not just about names, dates, places.
absolutely. It's
You
what
have a
the
few
people
photos.
did.
It's what they did. It's put in
Yes.
historical context
Yeah.
and understanding that. And so it's been a really rewarding journey for me personally to do that. And now I have kind of maintained that connection
Mhm.
with, or reestablished that connection with my family in upstate New York, because my third great grandmother left and went to Detroit, where I was born and where my grandmother was born.
Hmm.
So now those two parts are coming back together.
Love it. That's the story. That's the story. It's more than just the dates, the names, and the locations. It is the stories of the people and how they existed and what mattered to them.
Exactly.
Kenyatta Berry, thank you so much for joining me. I'm
Oh, thank you
Anita
for having me.
Henderson with the Genealogist Writing Room. Be sure to find us at genealogistwritingroom.com. Thanks.